everyone, my name is Piana and welcome to my video, and today I'm here to give you part 2 of the Elven trilogy by German writer Bernhard Hennen. If you haven't seen my video for part 1, I will link it somewhere up here and also in the description, so you can go watch that, find out what happens in book 1. Book 2 picks up pretty much where book 1 left off. The human Mandred and his 2 elf companions, Neuramon and Faradin, have just returned to the elf world. Mandred left his son Alphadas behind in his village Fernstan, and they have just come back from a quest to kill Norel's son. Norel is the woman that Neuramon and Faradin are both trying to seduce, and she has been banished by the Elf Queen in book 1 for having a son with a demon. She was sexually assaulted, by the way, but apparently it's her fault. So anyway, Norel was banished, and they are going back to the Queen to tell her that her son Guillaume is dead, and now she can set Norel free, lift her banishment like she promised. However, when they get back to the Queen, she's like, no, like, Guillaume didn't die the way I said he should. Like, he was supposed to be killed by one of you, and he just randomly got killed by a bunch of soldiers, so it doesn't count. I'm not freeing Norel. Understandably, they're all a bit pissed off. The Queen also closes the portals out of the elf world, so they're all stranded there, including Mandred, so yeah, she's a bitch. Like, the Queen's a total bitch. Like, I wasn't convinced by her character in book 1, but in book 2, she gets Bitch of the Year award. Faradin goes off to try and find all the grains of sand that were used in the spell that banished Norel. Good luck with that. Like, that is ambitious at best. But he did actually find 56 grains of sand out of 800, which is quite an achievement. Neuramon decides to take Faradin to his home. He lives in this massive, great big oak tree, and with like this spiraling stairs that's sort of carved into the side because, you know, elves. The first thing Mandred thinks when he sees this is, wow, how does he get up the stairs when he comes home drunk? So he spent like 3 years with the elves and still hasn't cottoned on to the fact that he's the only one with a drinking problem. Mandred, you're a bit slow. And also maybe you need help. Faradin and Neuramon decide to learn how to create their own portals to get out of the elf world and not rely on the portals that the Queen controls. So they go off to find an oak tree who was super friends with Norel, and he teaches them this spell. It takes them all of winter to learn this. Mandred also makes really good use of his time by tapping into the Queen's wine cellar and going on a drunken rampage with a couple of centaurs. Because why not? Once Neuramon and Faradin learn how to successfully open portals, they go and find Mandred, who made a promise in book 1. He promised that he would get drunk with the oak tree that saved his life. And he kept his promise. He goes down to the Queen's cellar, gets a shit ton of massive barrels of wine, takes them on a cart down to the oak tree and pours them over the roots of the oak tree. And then passes out in a pool of his own vomit. If you were ever wondering how to get an oak tree drunk, this book gives you the answer. They manage to open a portal and get out of the elf world into the human world. They end up in a desert, and they meet a race of desert-dwelling elves who fled the elf world because they thought the Queen was a total bitch. And at this point, Neuramon and Faradin are having a hard time disagreeing with them. They're told that the Great Library of Escandria might hold the answer that they seek in order to lift Norel's banishment, so they go in search of this library, and when they find it, it's just glorious. When they get there, there's an elf having a animated discussion with a unicorn. There's some kobolds, gnomes, a creature with the body of a bull and a human torso with like wings on it. What's that? And wonderfully, they just get to walk into the library and nobody like gives a shit about a man hanging out with 2 elves because like all these weird creatures mix in this place, so it's extraordinary. before being able to take any books from the library and study there, they have to work and contribute to the library. So Faradin and Neuramon are given these little oak leaves with fairy poems written on them. It is the most adorable thing in the world. The library hasn't found a way of preserving the oak leaves with the fairy poetry, so they have to like write it down. It's so cute. It's so cute. The library also brings out a different side of Mandred's personality. Like, obviously the first thing he does is go down to the wine cellar and gets drunk, because the library has a wine cellar. Who knew? But then he gets completely obsessed with epic poetry and epic sagas, because obviously he does, like, he's part of one, so he would, wouldn't he? Neuramon finds information about an oracle who might be able to give him answers and tell him how to lift Norel's curse. Faradin's still looking for his grains of sand. The two have an argument and decide to go on their separate ways. Mandred stays with Faradin while Neuramon goes off to look for the oracle. Mandred and Faradin decide to go back to Mandred's home village, Fernstan, and when they get there, they realise that while they were in the library, they've taken another leap in time, basically. This time, it's like over 200 years. So when Mandred gets back to his village, it's not like a little fishing village anymore with just 20 people there. It's like a town with like a castle and everything. Apparently the time jump thing has something to do with them going through portals. Like every time they go through a portal, they take a leap in time. It still doesn't explain what happened in the cave in book 1, but was it the demon that went through a portal? Why would they I don't know. Mandred discovers that his son became a hero in a war against trolls. So while they've been away, there's been this massive, great big war where the elves decided to side with the humans in order to fight the trolls. And his son, Alphadas, became a great hero. So the epic saga chapter about him fighting a troll in book 1 would have been foreshadowing, I guess. But nobody mentions it. Okay, whatever. They discover that some of the elves who fought in the war are still being kept prisoner by the trolls, so Faradin and Mandred jump on a boat, go to the troll kingdom in order to free them. And when they get there, it gets dark. Like, really dark, in the way the weirdest and the most horrible bits of Game of Thrones are dark. I really wasn't expecting that. They managed to free the elves and get them on a boat and sail back with a lot of injury and fighting, and it's all very epic and battles. Bernhard Hennen, once again, very good at battle scenes. Super, super top notch. Great. Neuramon, on the other hand, manages to find the entrance to the Oracle's lair. However, he needs a dwarf in order to open it. The door can only be opened with one elf and one dwarf, so he goes to the dwarf kingdom and has a time of his life. Like, the dude meets an old friend of his who knew him when they were one of his previous lives. He gives him his sword, and he's like, it's so nice to see you again. You should come back and have drinks when we're all reincarnated. We can have a big party. It's going to be awesome. Remember that time we killed a dragon together? So Neuramon doesn't remember any of this, but he's super happy to find out about his previous lives, because like the elves, souls, spirits or whatever get reincarnated, and so do the dwarves, like even more than them. Yeah, so are there ever any like new elves or new dwarves that are born? Or is it just the same ones that keep coming back? Because the elves have no memory of their previous lives, but the dwarves do, so it must get weird and boring after a time. Neuramon successfully visits the Oracle. She shows him the place where the portal to Norel's banishment place is. He goes back to Mandred's village and waits for them. He waits 50 years. And it doesn't hang around doing nothing. The dude makes an army in Mandred's name and trains them, so they're like top-notch fighters. He makes a shit ton of art, like paintings, sculptures. He teaches them to play music. He even creates a new breed of horse from Mandred's horse and his horse, because why not? And while all this is going on, has to fight away every single woman in Fernstan, because they all want to sleep with him. and he's only interested in Norel. I think at this point it is time to maybe find other options. So Mandred and Faradin eventually come back. What I forgot to mention is Mandred's descendants are now the kings of like this part of the world, whatever it's called. So his son was the first king, was like made the first king, and then all his like male descendants are the kings. Mandred super happy that his latest descendant, the new king, is really good with a battle axe because he hasn't forgotten what's important. He also then goes away and gets drunk again. Like, seriously, Mandred, you really need help. Like, I don't know if they have the equivalent of Alcoholics Anonymous in this place, but he really, really has a drinking problem. Somebody should do something. Maybe sit him down. Have Neuramon and Faradin, you need to sit him down and have an intervention at this point. So he doesn't go off whoring like he did in book 1, but he does sleep with not 1 but 2 of his descendants. Like, there's 11 generations or something between them, but still, like, the village is like more than 30 people now. Again, you have other options. But they take Neuramon's like special army and travel to the place where the portal is. At this point, Faradin has managed to get hold of over 300 grains of sand out of the 800. Like, the dude doesn't give up. He's determined. Once they get there, they try and use the grains of sand to open the portal, but it doesn't work, so they have to go back and rethink their options. It gets weird because they have this big debate about if they open a portal back to Fernstan and get the army to go through it, like the army would age while they go through the portal, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because Mandred is also human and he doesn't age when he goes through the portal, so why would the rest of the army age? Not really sure. Once again, all of this is interspersed with, I think, 3 epic saga chapters, and they are honestly a lot better than they are in the first book. I think you can probably tell I enjoyed this book a lot more than I did the first book. I thought it was way better. The writing style is way better. The characters are way better. Just the whole story is way better. It really does read like classic fantasy, epic/epic saga. The way everything kind of tied in with book 1, I thought was also really good because I was expecting there to be plot holes and kind of, you know, that it wouldn't be continuous, but it absolutely was. He really did tie everything up, and I really wasn't expecting that. So that was that was a lot of fun. And even the epic sagas, like in book 1, it was quite hard to tell the epic saga chapters apart from the actual book, but in this case, like, there's one chapter when they're in the desert, this epic saga chapter where Mandred is referred to as a kind of creature of fire because he's so sunburned, he's all red, and he keeps asking for water because if he doesn't have water, he'll burn down their village. And he's like a benevolent monster of fire or something. So you've got this kind of fun chapter. They give him alcohol at one point, and like, it doesn't end well because it never does. Whenever he drinks, guy got an oak tree drunk. Apparently the oak tree enjoyed it, like it was singing. So I've read one book where an oak tree is giving the story of its life, and now we have an oak tree that sings when it's drunk. So I am collecting weird stories about oak trees, apparently. The one thing that I do quibble with, however, is Bernhard Hennen's doesn't, again with the magic, like he doesn't make the magic very clear. And there's one scene where they're running away from the trolls, and one of the elves, they're in the boat, the trolls are sailing after them, firing flaming arrows at them. One of the elves stands up and starts chanting, and then he gets hit by an arrow, and straight after that a wall of ice crashes into the sea and cuts off the elves from the trolls, and that's how they get away. The problem with this is it's never mentioned that this is what the chanting elf was trying to do, because if you don't kind of make this stuff clear, it does come across as Deus Ex Machina, which is synonymous with lazy writing. Please don't do that. I want to believe that it was the elves chanting that did that, but ice, bits of glaciers do fall off sometimes, so make it clear, please, Bernhard, please. I also liked Mandred a lot more in this book. Like, I really had a problem with his character in book one. He was just obnoxious and just getting drunk all the time. But in this book, like, when he gets to Neuramon's home and he's looking at the stairs and like, oh, how does he crawl up that when he's drunk? Did he just sleep on the roots with the horses? And I was like, oh, there's Mandred. Look at him, just being goofy and thinking about alcohol because, yay, he's back. He hasn't changed. Why would he? The obsessiveness with battle axes also isn't there. So that was also kind of nice because, like, the whole first novel is just him complaining because the elves and later on his son don't fight with battle axes and that's the only weapon that matters and blah 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 blah. I still think Neuramon is a better match than Faradin, though. I still think he is the better one of the two. Because Faradin, like, you are really determined, like, finding 800 grains of sand around the whole entire world. That's ambitious. And the dude almost does it. That's perseverance. That's a good quality. Neuramon, however, he's just nicer. I don't know. I like him more. They have a fight and yeah, again, he just comes across as the more sane, thoughtful one of the two. You would think that, you know, Faradin being the older one maybe would have more sense, but no. Neuramon throws at him that he's only interested in Norel because he is the reincarnation of his lost love, so he has a point there as well. So, all in all, super fun. I really, really enjoyed this a lot more. Yeah, that was the second book in the Elven trilogy by Bernhard Hennen. There it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Now you know how to get drunk with an oak tree. You're welcome. And I will see you all soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching.